It's
Yeah.
all there.
Kate Milavalcha, welcome. Welcome to Dr. Kate Chadbourne. Thank you, Kate, for rejoining us here. I really appreciate it. I
Oh,
value
hello.
spending time with you.
It's such a joy to be with you, Helen, and hello to everyone, and Happy New Year. And also, don't mind the kitten running up the
You're
stairs.
not having visions. I thought I was seeing things.
That's an actual kitten running up the stairs. But Happy New Year. I
Thank you.
I wanted to stay in that energy a little bit because I've been thinking so much about the new year and how uh, just that sense of starting again. And I'm not a big fan of the new year, new you, but I do love the freshness. I love the sense of here's another place where we begin again. And whatever that means for us can mean anything.
You're such a good influence on me because we're polar opposites. I hate New Year's Eve. I just wrote a Substack about how much I hate New Year's Eve because everybody else always has more fun than I do. It just seems
Oh,
like parties everywhere, and I'm thinking, okay, where's the fun? And then New Year's resolutions are ridiculous. I've had the same New Year's resolution for 71 years, and I never seem to accomplish. I'm gonna
oh.
get fit.
You know what, Helen, has really helped me is that I decided years ago that I wanted to make resolutions I actually wanted to keep. So the first of those was I wanted to visit a museum every month. That was it. That was my
Oh,
resolution.
oh,
And
my
and it made me
dream.
so happy. And this year one of my resolutions is to hear live music as often as possible. So instead of I just don't want to focus, we could go 80, 90 years going, there's a problem with me. I still need to be fixed. I need to get fit. I need to lose weight. I need to
I
be
know,
better. I
I
all these
know.
things. And I don't know about you, but I'm old enough now to see people who literally drop off the branch still wanting to fix themselves. And I am just determined not to do that. My overarching desire is to enjoy the world because it's a great
Oh,
world,
you're such a good influence.
So
you
what
know,
would yours be then, Helen, if you dropped the whole get fit? Like what would be
uh-huh,
something
uh-huh.
so delicious to you that just putting it on the calendar would make you happy?
Well, this is going to sound like I'm sidestepping the question, and I'm really not. I'm actually very content.
Mm,
I'm really content. I had a few things that I wanted to do. Like for years, I have all these kids who are militantly social advocates, right? And one of
mm.
their pet peeves, pardon the pun, is vegetarianism. And they've been pushing, pushing, pushing for years and really operating on my guilty conscience, sending me tortured videos of,
Oh, that's a hard one.
I
Boy.
woke up last January, a year ago, and without having any previous intention, I just decided I'm going to be a vegetarian. And I did it.
Wow, look at that.
And it wasn't a problem. It wasn't in
Mm.
any way onerous, except for one thing. In order to replace protein, I've turned to the fats. And that's presented a whole new struggle. So, everything has two sides, and
It
that's a
does.
lesson. That's a
Yes, it
real lesson,
does.
right? I don't know what I would do. This year we're going to be more proactive about growing a garden, a
Oh,
vegetable garden.
wonderful.
We've done it. Oh, great story. So my husband has taken on some of this just for fun. He grew corn 2 years ago. He grew corn.
Wow.
And I told him, well, what you ought to do is grow the three sisters. And he didn't know what I was talking about. So I explained, the belief that you grow these three plants together: corn, climbing beans, and squash. And they replenish the soil. They give each other support. They work together. He goes, okay. So he grew corn and squash. You know what kind of squash he planted?
What kind?
Zucchini. My neighbors saw me coming and they locked the doors. I was dropping off anonymous bags of zucchini on porches in the middle of the night.
That's great. Oh, well, what a great illustration of abundance, right? There it is.
Yes,
There it is.
yes.
And he obviously was a good farmer.
He really is. He's patient. And so this year, one of my goals is to grow potatoes.
There you
And
go.
sweet potatoes, because they store well, if you do it properly. And you
Oh,
can live, did
yes.
you know you can live on a potato and nothing except potatoes for a year without nutritional deficit?
That's amazing.
Who
I
knew?
didn't know that. I didn't. I know, obviously, both our ancestors lived on potatoes.
They got stuck. Let's put it that way. It's not
They,
like the national treasure. It was
no,
political.
it was a problem
Yeah,
eventually, obviously,
yeah.
but still, the potato is a mighty, mighty beast, and
Mhm.
a great thing, and a delicious thing. So well, that's an exciting goal,
And
to
how
be growing
interesting it's
potatoes.
associated with an old culture when it's actually a New World
It
plant.
sure is.
Isn't
Yeah,
that interesting?
I know. It really, I was just literally reading the other day that the potato didn't become a monoculture in Ireland until the end of the 17th century.
That's right.
Right. And so the famine, which happens in the middle of the 19th century, you've got 200 years of the potato, like just more or less taking over and getting rid of the diversity of other crops for good
Yeah.
reasons. It grew well. It helped,
Well, it
kept
was
people
what they were.
alive.
That was the only choice. They were relegated to infertile areas, and it was
Yes,
the best thing that grew on the
it
kind of sort of
was.
sandy, rocky soil. And it was the last choice, the only choice. It wasn't something that they thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if we developed a reputation for living solely on potato? I mean, come on.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the famine was manufactured. It was a false famine, as many famines are. This world has enormous abundance, and often people starve because other people deprive them or hoard resources. So,
Mm.
because of political reasons, they're not allowed to go where things grow, or they're not allowed to grow things, or they grow them and they're forced to give them for sale to their oppressors.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we were going to talk about
Well,
uplifting.
you know what? Let me give you one good potato thing that I think you'll enjoy, and you can remember this. Uh, there's a word. So prati is the word
Yep.
for
Yep.
potatoes.
Yep.
Prata, prati, but pratigaira means laughing potatoes, and those are the ones when you roast it and the skin splits open and
Splits.
it looks like it's smiling. So that's a good place for us to go, is to the laughing potatoes.
My grandmother lived with our family when I was a child, and she had the most abysmal diet. And she lived to be in her late 70s and died of an aneurysm in her heart that the doctor said she was born with. She
Oh
could have died as
goodness.
a 2-day-old.
Oh,
So, terrible example. She chain smoked, and she always had a cigarette with an. She taught me how to swear, and she didn't consider it a real meal if it didn't include potatoes and tea.
there you
It
go.
wasn't really a meal. And
One
most
can
of the
make a
time,
good case for that, really.
her meals consisted of very strong tea with milk and sugar and cookies
Yes.
or biscuits.
Biscuits. I like her very much. I wish I could
I,
have met her. She sounds great.
she was a hoot, a real hoot. She came
Thanks.
from Arklow.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah.
bless her. That's great. Well, she gave you some great gifts, didn't she?
Hilarious stories, that's for sure.
Yes. Yes. And
So,
vitality, right? Like it sounds to me like she had a kind of light and vitality of just, I'm here and I'm gonna, and here's you, Helen. You have the same.
she
You've
was
got
a
that
crack up.
vitality.
So she moved from Ireland, and she moved to live with us in the United States when I was about 9. And she had had a brush with pneumonia, and her niece, who was young, maybe in her early 20s, went over to the house one day and discovered that my grandmother had not been able to change her clothes. And she has an
Oh,
interesting background. She had broken her arm as a child, And of course, she lived in the middle of nowhere at the time. And the
Mm.
doctor was, a pseudo doctor. And the doctor didn't set the arm properly. It never healed
Oh.
correctly. So she didn't have full range of motion. And
Mm.
so when she got sick and she lost stamina, she really couldn't struggle to change her clothes properly
Oh,
because, zippers and stuff.
of course.
She went to Dublin as a 16-year-old to have surgery to fix it. And wouldn't you know, it was Easter Sunday, 1916.
Oh
And she
my.
told me about listening to the gunfire and watching the mobs down on the streets and stuff
Wow.
from the hospital window. And so that surgery didn't turn out
That's
too well. Isn't that interesting?
that is so interesting that she was
Yeah.
an eyewitness to that piece of history.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Especially
Wow.
because she came from the middle of nowhere. It could have just passed her by. You never know when we
So
become
was she,
witnesses.
Helen, was she born right at the turn of the century?
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like I think she was 16. She hadn't quite turned to 17, but I think she was
Okay.
born in 1899, maybe 9.
I'm always amazed when we remember people. I was just talking to some people about my piano teacher. When I grew up, I had a piano teacher who was 85 years old and I was 5. And she was a Victorian. She was born in the 19th century. And I think that's really remarkable.
Can you imagine?
We're sort of some of the last people who will know people born or have known people who were born in the 19th century. That's kind of amazing, really, because what a different world. I mean,
don't you wish now that you had asked certain questions that you didn't know?
You are not kidding, Helen. I wish I'd known. I mean, when you're 5 years old or even 10, I was lucky to have her from the age of 5 to the age of 19. So she died when she was 99.
90. Yeah.
And I was 19. And I came to understand.
Devastated you.
I still miss her so much. And she was truly my true teacher. And I'm so lucky. But I didn't understand until I was in my later teens the remarkable person. When you're little, you're just like, that's an adult. That's some old lady.
You have no historical context.
You have no context at all. But as I got older, I did understand. I mean, she had traveled abroad the QE2, which is like this cruise ship that would go from Boston to London. And she would be the shipboard pianist. And she'd tell me stories about that. She also knew Leonard Bernstein. And she called him Lenny. So
she really knew him.
She really knew him. And he called her Miss Roberts. And anyway, I'm so glad that I knew her. But you're absolutely right, Helen. I wish that I had known her as an adult because I would have been so curious about her life.
Brain.
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't believe in coincidences. This is synchronistic. I wanted to tell you about my neighbors when I was 5. They may have known your piano teacher. Wait till you hear this. This is so interesting. So there was this old married couple that lived next door to us, and they took a shine to us because, my mother was busy making babies constantly. And by the time I was 5, there were 4 of us.
Oh, my, Helen. Wow.
Oh, yeah. My brother is actually 3 years younger than I. And then she had back to back, So this old couple had been the fancy chefs on ocean-going liners like the Cunard. I wonder, don't you wonder? I wonder if they knew each other.
Isn't that something?
So they were these beautiful, beautiful chefs. And once a week, they would invite my brother and me over to the house, and they would have us for lunch. No, let me rephrase that. They made lunch for us. And they always made homemade macaroni and cheese. I've mentioned this before.
How amazing.
It haunts me. I have never been able to replicate it. And I make macaroni and cheese from scratch. And I've tried everything. And I do not know what the secret ingredient was.
That's kind of wonderful, though. That's wonderful.
She must have made her own pasta. That's what been it. And I don't do that.
But look at these lovely people wanting to give a treat to their neighbor children. That is so beautiful. Yeah, keep telling me. I want to hear.
They had a pantry that was full of baked goods. Once a week, they would both bake. And it was like Willy Wonka, you know? And my brother at the time, I was 5, so he was 2.5, two and a half. He would, he lived for this pantry, and he would allow us to go in and pick something out to take home when we left. Can you
What
imagine?
an angel. What a lovely, lovely couple.
I think about the Cole Porter musical Anything Goes.
Yes.
They experienced that. I'm sure they did, that sort of environment. I would just give anything to be able to talk to them again. Can you imagine?
I can imagine. Oh, have you ever written about that experience, Helen? Because that would make a wonderful, just to go even deeper into the memory, because I bet you remember details that are gorgeous, right? Like maybe you remember the way the pantry looked and the things that you saw. And that would be worth writing
about.
It would be, wouldn't it? Yeah. Because it's also such a time and place, a special time and place.
Yes, you're right. My mother had a female friend who was one of a married couple. They were older than my parents, but they kind of palled around, and I'm not entirely sure how they became friends. These people were quite wealthy. This is Santa Barbara, California. So there were people like us, and then there were the rich people,
Yes.
And they formed a very close friendship, and they would often have us up to their house. They lived on the Riviera. Actually was a neighborhood, right? And we would go and visit, and they had a house full of wonders. He was really into these, what were they called? Catalogs. You get a catalog of gifts you could buy, these different, like the Vermont Country Store.
I do indeed, which is still fun to look at, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, for a kid, I would pore over them. I was never bored at their house. They had a big basket full of catalogs. I was good. And he would buy things out of these catalogs that were a hoot. Do you remember the mechanical bird? You would set it in front of a glass of water and it would bob.
Yes, yes.
I still think that's some kind of magic or a miracle or something. I'm not entirely. And one day we showed up and there was a disembodied hand hanging out of a drawer. He got one of these, like a latex woman's hand, and it was just hanging out of the drawer. The drawer was shut, and it was.
Oh my goodness! What a character!
Just ice cubes with flies in them.
That's great. That's great.
But she had been a flapper.
Oh my goodness!
I didn't realize this at the time, but I figured it out. She went to Bryn Mawr, and I think in the 1920s, and that was very unusual. It wasn't common for women to be that well educated, right? She came from
yes, of course,
a wealthy family, I think, in Pennsylvania, and the reason I know she was a flapper is a thing about her that fascinated me, and I could never figure it out. She wore stockings that she rolled above her knees and held with elastics above her knees. That was garters. A flapper style, right?
Wow!
Right?
Oh my
Isn't
goodness!
That hilarious?
That's so cool.
You've taken me down memory lane here.
I love it. Well, there's so many treasures, aren't there? I've been thinking so much today about what we think about and about what we select out of the vast cupboard of experience, right? And of our memories and of what we could pay attention to. Just yesterday, I saw some news that really unsettled me. That's just life, right? Like there's so much to be unsettled by. And today, before talking with you, Helen, I went walking in the woods here. We've had some snow and it's beautiful and the light is beautiful. And I just had to do the work with my brain and say, I'm not thinking about that. I'm not giving my day to that. There's so many wonderful things to think about. You can go through your memories of, as you have or as I have. You can look at your wild kittens that are running all around your house, as mine is now. You can think about what you want to create. There's so many things. And why not actually go into the lucky bag of memory and think about good ones?
I agree with you. But I tread this very thin line because maintain strongly that it's extremely important to understand our reality. And we have a responsibility while we're here to speak out to advocate for the good. And
Amen to that.
You can't advocate for the good if you don't see the bad, because your head's buried in the sand. So
well, I think they're not quite the same thing though, Helen. I think
no.
there's one thing to actually, you can immerse, right? Like there's one thing, I mean, I make a cursory acquaintance with the headlines in the New York Times every day, a couple times. I know what's happening,
Yeah.
but I'm also not allowing my brain to sizzle away on things that I can do nothing about. The things I know actually where my power lies, it lies in teaching. And it also
yes.
lies in keeping my head clear so that I can show what clarity looks like and inspire it in other people, right? I'm sure many people have gone down the rabbit hole of reading every single terrible thing that's going on and feeling pretty terrible. And I actually don't think that strengthens you. I think it weakens you. I think it weakens your clarity. I think it weakens your sense that you can do something. We are all going to give our gifts in different ways.
Yeah.
And in order to have the strength to give your gift, I think you have to be very mindful of what you're putting in your brain. And kind of keep a close guard on it. That does, again, I'm with you. I don't want to not be aware, but I also don't want to drown in going down the rabbit hole into those things that I really don't have. Like the news that I got yesterday, which was about a writer that I respected, I should say. And it really depressed me and it really shocked me. And I had to say to myself today, Kate, you've thought enough about that. That's enough. That's it. You know what you can know about that. And giving it any more time will ruin a nice conversation I'm going to have with my friend Helen, or ruin this nice walk in the woods or the work and the creating I want to do today. So it's like just gently closing the door on that, saying, I'm not going to give that any more time. And that's something to practice.
It is easy to get pulled into it. However, I'm convinced that some of us, that's our job. That's why we're here. And it doesn't weigh me down quite to the extent that I now understand it does for other people, because I've had this insight since I was a child. I've had decades and decades to desensitize and to prepare myself, right? So none of this surprises me.
Yes.
But I do feel like the voice in the wilderness sometimes, because if we can feel like we're powerless, but we're not powerless. The things that we can do are often very close to home.
For sure. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
I'll give you an example. We don't live in Washington, D.C. We don't sit in the halls of Congress. There's nothing we can really do to advocate on a broad scale. But we can write letters to the editor. We can go to the school board meetings. We can be aware of the threats to our immediate
We
community.
can give pastries to our next door neighbor children. That I mean it though, Helen. They did service in the world. Yes. They took you under their wing and they loved you. Or my piano teacher who said to me every week, "What did you make up this week?" What a gift she gave me, because she was the only one in my life who was giving my own creativity encouragement. So I think you're so right. But I also want to come back to what you said, Helen, because I think it's so interesting and important, which is you kind of know what is yours to do. And you kind of know, like, you have maybe the resilience to face into the wind of the things that you find very difficult. I feel like my job is to inspire creativity in other people. I really do. I've always known that. I've always been excited about that. Like, how can I get you singing? How can we get you writing poetry? How can we get you thinking about your life in a way that feels creative and exciting? My job is definitely not to be standing on the edge of reality saying there's a problem.
Well, we're the two sides of the same coin.
We are. And we're giving the service from, and both, we're both saying you have power. You have power to do something.
Has traditionally been a revolutionary act. Look at the poetry
Yes.
of Roshendu.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
Yes, indeed.
For anybody who might not know that, I think I've talked about it before. It literally means small dark rose, right?
Yes.
And it was a metaphor for Ireland when it was a capital crime to advocate for Irish independence and talk about Ireland as an entity.
Yes.
So they talked about
I
it as
actually
a
have,
moment.
just to say, I don't know if you'd ever want to see this, but I have I made a YouTube video called something like Creators Don't Be Bullied by Your Inner Queen Elizabeth I, because I was talking about the penal era in Ireland when creativity was, just as you say, Helen, was cracked down on, right? Elizabeth famously said, burn the harpers, right?
I didn't know she said that.
Kill the harpers and burn the harps.
Oh, that's
Because
horrifying.
she saw the harpers as people who got into the rooms of power. They were entertaining, and she was afraid that they were carrying secrets. But at the same time, of course, this was the penal era when Irish Catholics were not allowed to pursue their religion. We're not allowed to go to school.
Oh, you couldn't speak Irish.
We're not allowed to speak Irish. We're like this crackdown. But I was saying in that video, let's look out for any kind of internalized Queen Elizabeth that we're carrying around in us that says, you're not allowed to be creative. You're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to sing. Oh, goodness. I work with people almost every day who have that Queen Elizabeth in them that says, don't make a noise. Don't sing out. And of course, I think the real opportunity is sing out.
Sing out.
So
you'll love this story. My granddaughter, who's 8, my daughter sent me a brief video the other day of my granddaughter playing the piano. And, I didn't recognize it. And it was, both hands, chords, pretty sophisticated. She's only 8.
Well done.
And then my daughter was complaining, look at this. She'll do this for 2 hours, but she won't practice her lessons. And I said, well, but she's learned her lessons. She said, no, she made this up.
Your daughter has nothing to worry about.
That's right. That's
nothing to worry about. This is exciting. I always say my definition of talent is eagerness. Here's this granddaughter who wants to play. And I say to all my music students, you don't have to do anything I'm telling you. Don't. Play whatever you want, because practice is play and play is practice. So she's right on track. She is soaring, in fact, in my opinion.
Do you see, here I am, Eeyore. I think it's sad that it seems like fewer young people are picking up instruments as a means of just self-expression and creativity and something to do, a hobby. That word, hobby. People don't seem to have as many hobbies. You spend more time with young people, but this is what I'm seeing. What do you think about that?
I wish I could tell you for sure. I will say I have 2 new pianists this week, and they're 16 years old. So that gives me hope. I love the young ones I meet. I should say I teach all ages, really. I think my eldest student right now is probably in her 60s, but I've had definitely people up into their 70s. And but as far as young people, I do think the virtual world has seduced us over these last decades, myself included. But I also see a movement back to real life. And playing an instrument, I'm really interested in people who can do a demonstrated thing. Like actually one of the young girls who just signed up to do singing and piano with me, she is learning to build things. And I said, oh my goodness, I love hearing that. Like a person who can actually do a demonstratable skill and create something with their hands. And I love it. I emphasize in my teaching repertoire. Like I want everybody who sings with me to be able to just stand up and sing a song. If you have an opportunity, you don't have to play something on your iPhone. You can literally just stand up and sing. Or you're a piano player.
Did you do that as a child?
Yes,
Yeah, us
definitely.
too. We too. People would come over and we had our little party pieces, you know.
Party, you know it, Helen. I am a big believer in the party piece. I think it's just an important thing to have. And whatever that is for you, it could be that you sing a song, it could be that you play an instrument, or you recite a poem, or
Recite a poem, yeah.
you tell a handful of jokes. Honestly, like just a
Hmm.
few knock knock jokes can change the whole day for us.
Hmm.
So uh, I sort of see that we've been wooed away, but I see a lot of people saying, I want the real world again. I want wood and strings and metal, and I want a harp in my lap, and I want to learn how to sing this song. So I think we're coming back to that.
This other, I have a bunch of daughters. The one who plays the harp, this was one of her very first harps. She plays a concert harp now.
Oh,
But
lovely.
how did she get started on the harp? There was a family who lived across the street. And the daughter of the family, when she was about 11, kind of went down this medieval rabbit hole. She,
How fun.
dressed like the Renaissance fair,
I love her.
I know, different time periods. But
She's
so
a cool kid.
she got a kit to make a Celtic harp.
Oh,
And
wow.
she made this harp and taught herself how to play it. And then my daughter was like, oh, okay, a little bit younger than the neighbor. And so she looked up to her. And she grew out of it and went on to do, to really do the harp. But I just thought that was so interesting.
I
That
love
it took
that.
another child, to.
That's it. It's a spark, and we pass it on. And that's what I tell all of my creators is like, you're not only doing everything good for yourself, because, I've been actually reading a book by Martha Beck, and it's called Beyond Anxiety. And I could tell you the thesis of this book in one sentence, which is, when you're being creative, you can't be anxious. It's true.
They've done studies. For
Yes.
example, knitting. People who knit have the same brainwave patterns as people in meditation.
I believe it. I believe it. So, and I know when I'm playing scales, even just that, just like the discipline of scales, or certainly like one of the things that I get to do with my students is do call and response singing. So I'm teaching them Irish language songs, and they don't generally have Irish very much. So I'm training them how to listen phonetically. And so I'm singing them a line, and they're singing me back a line. And we finish those sessions with so much joy because it's so fun. And even if you're saying, not quite that, you're almost there, try this. But it's focus, and it's productive, and it's happy, and it's creative.
Well,
So
you're training new brain connections,
I
Right.
know. And that, I think, is one of the most exciting things that has come to the fore over these last years, is the whole concept of neuroplasticity.
Yes.
That we are changing our brains. I mean, when we were little girls, Helen, people thought that the brain that you were born with was the brain you would die with.
That was it, right.
That was it. And IQ was fixed and all that kind of stuff. And now we know we're
So much
changing
more.
our brains all the time.
You'll love this. What we used to do as children, and I walk around my neighborhood almost every day, and you would think no children lived in this town. It's like sort of like the Stepford Wives, the day the earth stood still. There's something very odd about it. Children don't come outside to play. They're all inside all day long. I don't know what it is they're doing until they come out with an adult in an adult supervised group game. Otherwise, they're locked up in their houses. It's very strange. When we were children, we had a swing in the backyard. And we all did this, but I would love to swing. And I'd swing for like a couple of hours. And I had a repertoire of Irish songs that I went.
Oh, that's so
nice.
Odd
little kid.
No, I think you knew what felt good.
Well, I think it puts you into a sort of meditative state.
Yes.
That rhythm, and then the music. And
you're out in the fresh air, and
yeah. And you develop a connection with the language and the notes. And I think that's very beneficial for all sorts of situations. More children should be forced to swing and sing.
I like it. Well, I always say, because I most of the public performances I do are at public libraries. and I make people sing with me. I'm kind of, but you know what? They want to. People love to sing. And I'm so interested in how joyful it makes us. It really gives us a lift to sing. And also, I think to sing together is so, so lovely. So it's so funny. I tease people into doing it. Actually, I always sing As I Roved Out. It's the first song
Mhm.
that I sing in every concert because I say, okay, here's your part, everyone. Lil-to-doodle, lil-to-doodle, lil-to-doodle-lay. And she hidled up the D, and she hidled up the D, and she landy. And they laugh, and then they're singing it
Teal.
like pros, right?
Yeah.
And I always say to them, listen, I always say, if you forget it, just make it up, which is what I do. No big deal. Let's enjoy ourselves. It's so good, you know?
One of my very favorite Gaelic songs, and I'm sure that I will mispronounce this because it's just a vague memory from my childhood, is Oro She the Vahuwalia.
You
Remember
said
that?
it perfectly, Helen.
Oh, really?
You said
Oh.
it perfectly.
Oh, well, see, that's what happens when
See?
you're brainwashed as a young one.
That's
I
a great
love
song.
that song. Yeah, yeah.
That's a great
Don't
song.
remember the rest of the words, but I
Yeah.
do remember that. Have you ever heard the rendition by oh God, what's her name? She died. My mind just went blank.
Oh, no worries. It'll come back.
Yeah. Oh, Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, yes, of course. Oh, Sinead. Yeah. What a singer.
Yeah, beautiful
She
voice.
teaches us so much about singing. I love, in Ireland, singers use to say it to somebody, sing a song in Irish is aber oran, which means say a song. And
Oral
it's such
tradition,
a
yeah.
it's such a different emphasis, than like the vocal pyrotechnics that we ask of people today, like,
Oh,
and all of this look at me, look at me, look at me
yeah,
kind of stuff that where really singing is a team sport, and there's room for everybody. And the thing that has always moved me about the way singing traditionally was in Ireland is that it was about essence. It was about the spirit of the singer and the generosity of sharing something with people that was a resource for them, would help them in some way, would entertain them or bring them up or teach them something or just accompany them in some way. So
yeah.
I really love to hear people singing, even if we say like they're not on pitch. I really don't care.
Yeah.
I can hear the essence. I can hear that person's wonderful spark.
You hear the old people singing. I remember from my
Yes.
childhood, and their voices are weaker and they have a harder time. But there's something timeless about it.
Yes.
They have found that, teaching children the alphabet, A, B, C, D. When you associate anything with music, you're more likely to remember it. And we're talking about a pre-literate time period where everything was an oral tradition. The bards, the troubadours, those people were the news reporters, extra,
They sure
right?
were.
Right.
Yes.
And they served a purpose that went far beyond entertainment.
Oh,
They managed
goodness,
to
yes.
combine the two. And that, I think, one of the moving things about a lot of Irish music is that so much of it does reflect political struggle and social struggle.
Yes.
One of my favorite Irish singers, probably not really well known in America, is Tommy Makem.
Yes.
He comes
Oh,
from the same
goodness.
town my father came from.
Oh, wow. Yes. And Tommy singing about the hunger strikers, and
Oh, his voice is just gorgeous.
yeah, a
It's
haunting
so
voice.
pure. Yeah, yeah.
One that I go further back is Frank Hart. He was someone who taught me a lot about singing, and he lived outside Dublin.
H-A-R-T.
Harte. Frank Hart, and he collected, like, he has a whole record of songs about 1798 in Ireland. He has a whole record of songs about Dublin. He was very interested in political songs, so I think you would like him, Helen. And he was the one who would always say, that the conquerors write the history, and the conquered write the songs. And then he would say, and we Irish have a lot of songs.
Yeah. No kidding. I
But
love the
he
foggy
himself
blue.
sang so many of them. In fact, he had a database he actually showed me in his
Oh
house
shoot.
with 35,000 songs.
Oh my God.
And he remembered, I mean, he had an active repertoire of probably 1,000 songs at any one time. Though he used to joke and he would say that when you learn, he said, the songs in your head, he said, it's like a ruler. And he said, you put new songs in one side and old songs drop out the other side.
Yeah.
But he was joking because honestly, I've never met anyone who could remember more songs, but also had a deeper relationship with them. He didn't just sing. Anything he sang, he had thought about so deeply. He had investigated the history. He thought about the social history and the people, and he really made a heart connection, and then he
Hmm.
sang from that place. So I learned so much from him. He really was a remarkable human being.
You know what I've noticed with Irish music? It resonates with people from all over the world, and it resonates in the same way. So often I'll see comments, or I'll play something Irish music, and I'll notice the comments people leave. I'm in Germany and I'm crying right now, and
Yes.
there's something about the music that touches the heart, and I know that it
Yes.
must be a heart brain connection. Do you know, is it a particular key? Is it, what is it about Irish music that's so emotional?
Well, I never want to sort of like capture the fairy in my hand and hold it under the microscope at the same
Oh,
time.
come on.
Well, as long as she doesn't mind. Um, but at the same time, there are certain movements in the music that are absolutely Irish. And one of them, believe it or not, is the Mixolydian mode, which, just to say, is so if you have, say, the key of G, right? And in regular key of G, it would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F
F
sharp,
sharp.
G, right?
Yeah, right.
Uh, oh, sorry, low battery. How did that happen? Yikes! Sorry.
Story
Um,
of my life. Well, if something happens, we understand.
okay,
you're not
I
dematerializing. It's
I oh
fine.
good. It says I've got 20%. Sorry about that. But anyway, in if you're playing, for instance, my young love said to me, my mother won't mind. That mother, right? So that is the natural instead of the sharp. And it is that, to me, that's like a total tug of the heart,
Yeah,
right? Like
why?
you just go, oh. Um, and that is in so many of the songs,
Yes,
right?
and
So
what is that? What does it tug
it's
at?
it is a bit of musical magic. It really
Yeah.
is. And it's really prevalent in Irish music. And I've never really heard it as much in any other kind of national repertoire of music.
No, and people use the same word. People all over the world use exactly the same word to describe it. Haunting.
Yes, and in Irish, so driachtul, driachtul, and you talk about the driacht and ceol, the magic of the music, and if you're, and it does imply haunting. It implies um, that it's got you, that it's
Oh, I
really
can't
got you.
tell you how many times I'll just impulsively listen to some Irish music and end up crying.
Yes, and you kind of
It's
needed to probably. You know what I mean?
pathological. Yeah,
Like
it's
it did clear
cathartic.
out the drains in a way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which sometimes that's just what we need, really, is to
that's
sing and
hilarious.
cry and then feel a little bit washed out, and then, like your grandmother, to have tea and maybe a biscuit,
Yeah, and a
you
few
know,
choice words.
and a few choice words. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't think, I think it can be regarded from the outside as sort of emotionally self-indulgent, but I think you're right. It's cathartic. It does clear out the pipes. I think we need that
Yes.
more than we acknowledge.
I think you're right, Helen. I mean, back around to this idea, when they say things, and I don't know the statistic, but they say that we're processing in a day now, like what a medieval person would process in their whole lifetime in one day, like as far as the stimulus and what's
Yeah.
coming,
Oh,
the
I believe it.
information that we're
Yeah.
handling. And so our nervous systems, as people remind us, are the same as that medieval person, but we're asking them to handle so much. And so, I we started this conversation talking about the new year, and I decided that my word this year that I want to live into is flourishing. And that is part of that is actually making room for that nervous system that needs a break. That I'm actually focusing right now on just sleep, just getting more sleep.
Oh,
Um,
you have to focus on that. I have to resist it.
I do, Helen. I think there's maybe there. It's not fair to say there's two kinds of people, but maybe there's two kinds of
I think
people.
there are. I don't understand insomnia. I'm much more likely to relate to what's it called, narcolepsy.
Well, I love that. I've always envied people like you who just like their head hits the pillow and away they go for 8 or 9 or 10 hours. And
Oh, 12. Let's not
oh,
deprive ourselves. No.
Helen, let me just say you have won the lottery. I think that's marvelous. And I often go to bed and I'm excited actually about what I'm doing in my life and don't want to stop. It's really more like that.
Isn't
So
that
now I'm
interesting?
working on saying like you have a bedtime and it's made everything better. But whatever that thing is for you that helps you with your nervous system, and I mean it's always the basics. It's like
I
eat well,
dream.
sleep well, take care of make sure you're moving around, make sure you're getting fresh air. It's the
Yeah,
basics. It's
yeah.
the basics. Help us and get off the screen. That's another one.
Well, to
As much as I
me,
love the screen, but get off it sometimes.
sleep is a journey into another world, and I
It
dream quite a
is.
bit.
I'm
And
a
I
dreamer
have
too.
dreams that are not dreams, and I
Yes.
just never know what to expect, you know. And a lot of times I don't remember them, but I know I've been busy all night.
That's the sense. I love that too. I feel like I'm often traveling in my dreams. I literally dream of travels so often.
Like traveling, are you walking? Are you floating? Are you know what? How?
I'm often walking, and there are places that I've been back to again and again. There's a rocky headland that I go back to in my dreams again and again. There's a greenhouse uh, underneath evergreens on a hill that I go back to again and again. There's a bunch of those things, um, and I'm often
Those are memories, past life memories. I
they
think.
feel important. They do feel important. So anyway, just making sure that there's enough of that time to have those dreams feels important. Making sure we're looking after ourselves. It's
There's a school of thought, and you know I don't know what I believe, but there's a school of thought that when you're asleep, your spirit is doing metaphysical school, you know, learning lessons, being
I can see that
informed,
too.
yeah,
Yes.
in improving in vibration, which sounds all very woohoo until you talk to a quantum physicist, and they will tell you that it is all about vibration and the movement of the molecules that make you up. So
Here.
very interesting to me.
And we know, even I'm with you completely on that, by the way. I always say without hesitation, I am a believer in magic. I am. And I have enough evidence in my own life for that. I think actually most people do. A lot of people do. But even if you are stubbornly resisting that idea, you know that if we say your vibration is the energy in which you are currently living, right? So we know that you have one day in a good vibration of energy, in a good energy, and you have a very different day in a lesser or lower or worse. We just
You're
know, right?
pulled
Like,
down. Yeah.
and it is amazing that what your eyes are drawn to when you're in that lower vibration is you're going to look for problems. You're going to look for, things you don't like. Where everybody I know watching this has had the experience of just being in a good mood and going to the grocery store, and people can't smile enough at you,
Isn't that
right?
funny? I know
You
it is
see
just
children,
remarkable.
they smile at you. You see old people, they smile at you. Everybody is just glad to see you. And it really started with you were in a good mood and you went to the grocery store.
Yep. Well, you know what they say? They say that I don't know the exact quote, but that magic is just uh, science we don't understand yet. And I would say conversely, science is magic.
I like
And
that
I
very
think of it
much.
as a continuum. I say this all the time. People are tired. They can go forward a half a minute. There's this continuum with metaphysics on one end and advanced physics, science on the other end, and they are
Yeah,
meeting in the middle.
more
The
and
more
more.
you read the works of experimental physicists, that might be redundant, but cutting edge physicists, quantum physicists, plasma physicists, astrophysicists, they're all starting to say, those philosophies of the ancient mystery schools, they were actually correct, because according to Kepler's clouds, the law of polarity is a thing, and it's very interesting to me that they're making a Venn diagram of common ground. It's just simply looking at the same phenomena from a different angle and
Yes.
trying to
That is so
understand it.
exciting to me. That is so
Oh yeah.
exciting to me.
Oh yeah. There's a young woman who is a scientist. I can't remember her name. I never can remember her name. She is not American, but she lives in the United States. I don't know if she's Eastern European or Scandinavian. I simply can't remember. She works for NASA, and she started out doing therapy and psychology for fighter pilots and astronauts because of
Oh,
the overlook syndrome, that phenomenon. Okay, when you go,
no.
William Shatner talked about it. He went into outer space, and when he had the good fortune to travel in one of those private rockets to outer space a couple of years ago in his 90s, and he came home weeping, and he talked about this phenomenon
Mm.
where if you're up out in outer space and you look down on the planet, the impact and implications of the inconsequential size, the enormity of the cosmos, and that relative
Mm.
comparison flips the psychology of human beings on its side. It just completely, it just
Boggles
changes
the
changes
mind.
your whole, it's paradigm
Mm.
shifting, right? And so her job is to help them with that, but also to help people coming from a military scientific background who are rigidly afraid of admitting vulnerabilities, and it leads to crashes because they won't admit,
Mm.
oh, I was having trouble, I think I fixed it, but they didn't. So in the process of doing that, she is also studying animal communication
Mm.
and using AI, which I have mixed feelings about, using AI to take in all this data and convert animal communication into a universal language and teaching it to babies.
Oh my goodness, that's
Now, I
amazing.
know it hurts your head, right? It
Wow.
hurts to even think about it. Yeah.
What a vision, though. What a vision. I
Yeah.
love to hear about people who think like that. They're
Yeah.
thinking so far out of the box that they're changing things. That's really cool.
It's humbling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Helen, my friend, I actually have to say
You have
goodbye
to
to
run.
you.
I told you to
Um,
tell me. That's okay. No,
yes,
no,
I'm
no.
just realizing we've come to that time, and also I didn't. My fear was that my phone would turn off, and I hate not saying a proper goodbye. It's one of my least favorite things. So I just wanted to say thank you for this conversation, and also just happy everything to you
Thank
and to
you.
your
Thank you.
viewers. Um, Again, there's so much to be glad about, and I want us to turn our thoughts there when we can, even as we know, Helen, it's important what you're sharing and that you're pointing to injustice and pointing to those things that we need to know about. And you and I are standing like on both pillars, on both sides of the hearth,
Yeah, we have to work
and
together, right?
we're working
Uh,
together.
you're a gift, and I am so grateful.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so, so much. You're just shining a light, and that's really what we need. I can be the cloud, and you can be the light, and together we'll create the rain, and things will grow. So it'll
That
be great.
sounds great to me, Helen. I love it.
I love you. I think you're wonderful, and I do
Oh,
hope you'll come back.
I'd be glad to. Thank
I
you
have
so
no idea
much.
what we'll talk about, but I suspect it won't be hard to come up with
Not at
something.
all. No, I think we could ramble on forever.
Slongafoil.
Slán go fóill.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for watching. Let me hit the button here. I can never see the